So hi everyone, good evening or good morning, wherever you are in the part of the world. Today we're here again for another edition of the ILCA Fireside Chat. And today we have with us Nkemdilim Uwaje-Begho, who is the CEO of Futuresoft Resources Limited, or Futuresoft. I think I'll just do like a very brief introduction of Nkemdilim, but of course, there's no better person to introduce her than her very self. So Nkemdilim is a seasoned information and technology professional with over 15 years of industry experience in Africa's largest emerging economy. She has a deep purpose and focus on bridging the digital divide and transforming Africa by harnessing her digital benefits. She heads Futuresoft Resources Limited, which is a digital company specialized in e-learning and various security software here in Nigeria. And it's quite interesting to have her today. And she has so many accolades. And then I think I'm just able to read a few of them here, right? Nkemdilim is recognized as an Obama African leader, Forbes top 10 female tech founders in Africa, the Global Digital Women's top 10 most inspiring women in Africa, Lionesses of Africa top 100 women and Ventures Africa 42 most innovative Africans. She's been recognized, right, and renowned even by various media agencies over time. But like I said earlier, who best to introduce who Nkemdilim is than ourselves? And we'll just get straight into the interview. But first off, I think we would want to really, really appreciate Nkemdilim for taking time to be with us this evening. We understand how busy her schedule can be, and getting her is really priceless to the ILCA. Thank you for joining us this evening, Nkemdilim.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much. So we know that our listeners would want to know you more than how I've introduced you. I think you're the best person to introduce yourself. Could you please just tell us about yourself and in your own words, what you do, and two things about Futuresoft, like what Futuresoft actually does. I know I've seen in a couple of publications that Futuresoft does e-learning software and security software as well, but would like to know if there are any other thing, if it's like an all-round software development company, what exactly does
Okay. Thank you so much, Mallick. So as you've said, my name is Nkemdilim Uwaje-Begho, and I'm the CEO of Futuresoft. I'm actually a serial entrepreneur, so I don't only run Futuresoft, but I have a couple of other companies. A lot of them are technology-driven companies. And I recently founded a new startup called Skill Up Africa that is focused on sort of sustainably building the technology talent pipeline. In terms of, what do we do at Futuresoft? So we've sort of pivoted in different ways. So Futuresoft is 13 years old this year, and we started as a web development and web hosting company. Over the years, we then, sort of evolved into offering additional services, which included e-learning, platform development, and content, as well as IT security consultancy service and IT consultancy services at large. Over the last, I would say, probably 2 or 3 years, we have evolved into a digital technology company that is focus on really 2 key areas. One is digital marketing and the other is digital transformation consultancy. We've served over 170 clients across 20 different industries and trained over 1,500 CEOs and executives in digital marketing and social media marketing, as well as digital transformation related courses. So I think at this point, we're very much focused on strategy development around digital, around allowing and helping our clients to develop customer experiences, as well as technology platforms to deliver those experiences, and helping them and guiding them on their digital transformation journeys.
Wow, that's quite interesting what Futuresoft does. I never knew you guys did a whole lot outside e-learning and IT security, but that's interesting to know that you still do digital marketing and the rest of content development and the rest of them. Quite interesting thing you're doing there. But what inspired you to found Futuresoft? Really, and how has it been like over time? Can you just give us like an idea of what it feels like heading Futuresoft and being able to manage that?
Sure. So I think the inspiration behind founding Futuresoft was the fact that there were not enough Nigerian businesses that had an online presence, right? So 13 years ago, a lot of businesses were still using at Yahoo, at Hotmail, at Gmail addresses, right? And, coming from, Germany, where I studied and worked before moving to Nigeria, I, sort of saw the importance of actually having your own domain name, having a website, ensuring that, you can be found on Google, doing some search engine optimization to ensuring that you have a better, digital footprint. And I wanted to ensure that African businesses can be found. And we're still driven by exactly that same passion, right? To put African businesses on the map, which allows them to unlock new clients, new target markets. It allows them to unlock partnerships. It allows them to unlock new suppliers and sort of a lot of opportunities, right? And I think that, for me, it's also important to sort of ensure that African businesses and African business leaders tell African stories, right? Usually a lot of stories are being told from other perspectives, which is, why I also find this Fireside chat so exciting, because, you are actually inviting Nigerian business leaders in the technology space to come and share their stories, which I think is really, really important, because we need more and more of these stories out there so that we have not just a sort of single perspective of what the African story is, right? So when you look at Western media, you a lot of the time see, sort of either terrorists with guns, or you see refugees or children that are starving and hungry. And in as much as these things all exist, they're not the only picture of Africa, right? The same way that lions, tigers, and bears are not the only, or giraffes are not the only picture of Africa, right? And in order for us to have proper representation and to have the right image out there, and stories that actually matter, and stories that count, and stories that really showcase the huge potential that we have as a continent and as individual countries and as individual people, right? That we have smart people, educated people, that we have thought leaders at the highest level, right? And I'm so happy to, sort of see that at the helm of the World Trade Organization, we now have an African woman that, also at the helm of, sort of World Bank, there is an African, right? And we're seeing Africans just really, sort of positioning themselves and rising through the ranks. And I think that that's really important to highlight and celebrate. And the best way of doing that is by actually creating digital footprints and telling digital stories and ensuring that, we have representation that we own, and not where somebody else says, oh, this is Nkem and this is how she is, right? But allowing Nkem to tell her own story and allowing Nkem's business to tell its story. So that's the inspiration, and still the same, still the same sort of mission that drives us up till today.
Well, that's interesting. And speaking of Futuresoft again, we found that there's like an Asian company in India that has a similar name, and we're wondering, oh, is this associated with Futuresoft in Nigeria? Yeah.
Oh, we just have the same name, but not associated at all. Just the same name.
Oh wow, interesting. And moving on to the next question. Having run Futuresoft for the past 13 years and been in the tech industry for more than 15 years now, right? What are the most profound changes that you think you've seen, or what are the changes you foresee in say in the African tech ecosystem going forward?
I think in terms of the most significant changes, I think it's really sort of the plethora of startups that we have now. When I look at when I started, there were very few other founders, right? And I think that there are also a lot of founders that sort of fell by the wayside and went into corporate or went to work in an oil and gas or company or in the banks simply because it was tough, right? Like the word entrepreneur didn't really resonate the way that it does today. So I think that that's really sort of the biggest change. I also think that in terms of technology advancement, obviously, technology has evolved at rocket speed, right? And technology adoption, has also been accelerated, especially, in the last, I would say, probably 5 years. And then again, an additional sort of push to acceleration through the pandemic. And I think that those changes that we're seeing, are across all the different industries. So you see, a really high number of startups that are sort of focused around the financial services sector, right? So all the fintechs, and you can see, technology companies across other sectors. So I think tech-driven businesses are on the rise, and the technologies are becoming more affordable and more available as well. I think access to infrastructure, access to devices is becoming easier as well over time, right? So I think those are sort of the key drivers. However, I think that there are areas where, we should be doing more and where we could be doing more, which is basically creating that enabling environment for these organizations through having adequate policies that actually allow companies to thrive and grow and, sort of employ more people. And I think that that's one place where there's still a lot of work that needs to be done. In terms of sort of the future trends, I think that, with everybody talking about the digital economy and really how we engage in this global digital economy, I think we're going to see a lot happening in terms of, the world becoming much, much smaller simply because there's technology. And I think we're already seeing it today where, especially through the pandemic, people are working remotely and you're collaborating with people all over the world without actually having to travel and to meet them, right? And I think that that's going to continue to happen and going to, sort of get even more normal than it was before, right? So I think the world is becoming a smaller place, thanks to technology. And I also think that, we're seeing more adoption and faster adoption of technology across, our countries. And I think that by having that, there will be sort of rapid change because people's behavior is changing, people's, sort of what they demand and what they expect is changing. So I think it's really, really important to sort of watch that space, but at the same time ensure that we're building the right policies to create that enabling environment.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Ken. That was really expounding and illuminating as well. We were thinking, right, and speaking to how things have changed over the years so drastically, and how startups are beginning to spring up. We've seen like a very high rate of startups, especially in the financial services sector. A number of startups doing excellently well in that space, despite the challenges, the regulatory challenges, the financial challenges, even with the financial service sector, which is an irony, right? But what, given your experience leading the board of some financial institutions in Nigeria, what do you think would be your advice to people looking at the financial services sector? Because we keep getting new startups with bright product ideas like every other day, right? What do you think would be your advice to these people? And I think I just want to sort of even merge the questions here, right? And to also say congratulations on your recent appointment as a Google for Startup Accelerator Mentor. And I just wanted you to speak to what advice would you first give to those looking to start up products in the fintech industry, and as well as even Nigerian techpreneurs, permit me to use that word, in general, what kind of advice would you give these people?
So I think in terms of sort of advice for, sort of new founders, I think, for me, it's always take your time, test your product, do it fast, fail fast, and get back up, go back in and succeed, right? And make sure that you are bootstrapping all the way and spending as little money as possible, right? And being as creative as possible, right? And learning as much as possible on the journey. As for the, sort of challenger brands in the fintech industry, I think, we all know where the trends are going. The trends are going towards digitalized financial services on a global level, and, sort of the also decentralizing finance. And, there's a lot that is being disrupted at this point. I think that a lot of the challenger brands are, sort of driving that disruption. Regulation has to catch up with that disruption, and not just in Nigeria, but in other, sort of more established markets as well. So I think overall, the existing sort of more traditional financial service organizations need to find ways to digitally transform, and need to find ways to innovate, need to find ways to, sort of really focus on how do we position ourselves for the future, right? How do we also build partnerships and collaborations with these fintech organizations? How do we also, sort of harness the experience, data, and knowledge that we have, right? And especially when it comes to data, how do we also find new ways of monetizing that data, or services that we offer, right, through creating APIs that, companies can connect to. And also, how do you also, sort of either incubate or partner with or acquire these challenger brands in order to continue to stay relevant? And how do you disrupt your own business model, right? I think for traditional organizations, this really needs to be the biggest question. How do you transition from your, sort of traditional models to purely digital models that focus on building platform businesses, that focus on the network economy, that focus on ensuring that your business is agile and innovative and really meeting customer demands and delivering an amazing customer experience through the channels that your customers want, right? And not through the channels that are traditionally available, while at the same time, navigating your regulator and ensuring that you're not contravening, sort of regulation, and that you're also helping and, sort of pushing innovation within your industry by engaging with your regulator, because you as a traditional, organization or institution, whether it's a bank or an asset management company, or a pensions company, you have much more, sort of influence on the regulators, on government policies than, some 25-year-old kid that has this bright idea of creating a disruptive financial service app, right? And I think that in order for the entire ecosystem to really thrive, there has to be collaboration, there has to be, sort of mentoring that is both sides, right? Where you have reverse mentoring from young people to older people, but you also have the generational knowledge exchange and knowledge transfer from people who have been in the industry, who have the learnings, who have the experience, to young founders, so that they can, sort of leapfrog and accelerate, and just be much faster in learning lessons and, scaling their businesses. And I think then it can really be a win-win for everybody.
Wow, that's that's a gem. They're like a very important advice to startups, and I just hope they have the opportunity to listen to this. One word that sticks to mind is collaboration, right? And not disruption. As you've mentioned, it's really key at this stage for most founders, very young entrepreneurs. Thank you so much for that. That was very, very insightful. I personally couldn't even appreciate you enough for that. And I'm so happy that I'm doing this firsthand and I'm able to benefit from, from this. It's quite interesting. But speaking to your work at Futuresoft, you've been celebrated by even Forbes Africa, right, as one of the top 10 female tech founders in Africa, and a host of other awards have ranked you highly. But looking at all these, right, is just a show that you're doing an excellent work in the industry. And then, whatever you're doing may be from Nigeria right now, but it just shows how much impact you have across Africa. But are there any plans for Futuresoft to maybe expand to other African jurisdictions, like other African countries? And when are you looking at this expansion? Because I think it would be good to bring this good news to other parts of Africa, not just Nigeria.
So we actually have clients in South Africa, in Liberia, and we've also done some collaborations with organizations in Kenya and Tunisia. So, I don't necessarily feel like we are limited to Nigeria. And I think because we play in the technology space, expansion does not mean physical presence, at least not to me. And I think really our message, and when you read our blog and specifically the articles that I've written on that blog, and you listen to my thoughts, that I put out there through speaking engagements, you clearly see that there is a Pan-African focus and not just a Nigerian focus, especially in terms of knowledge sharing, sort of educating executives and leaders, policymakers around digital transformation. And I have spoken at a lot of Pan-African sort of global conferences as well that address these leaders, and where I've spoken about digital transformation, where I've spoken about the potential of the digital economy, right? So for me, it's really about how do we make impact, right? And when I say we, I mean Futuresoft and myself as a leader in the technology ecosystem, right? And how do we ensure that not only do we influence policies and the way things are being done in Nigeria, but across the entire continent? Because the truth is that Nigeria, can not stand alone, right? We are within a continent, and we need to make sure that everybody on the continent is at the same level. And the truth is that when you look at some of the other, African countries, some of them are more advanced in terms of technology, but a lot of them are actually much less advanced than, Nigeria, when it comes to the startup scene, when it comes to, sort of technology policy adoption and creation of a technology ecosystem, right? Which means that there's a lot of knowledge transfer that can also happen from people within the ecosystem over here across the African continent. And, I think for me, which you've probably noticed, it's all about impact, it's all about sharing, it's all about how do we collectively, come together and really accelerate the growth of not just our country, but across the continent. I think for me, that's really the most important part. And I do feel that technology really is the only, and I say that, with all respect and humility for other things, but I truly believe that technology is the only driver that if strategically used, can really create socioeconomic development and transformation across the continent. You're muted.
Yeah, that was awesome to know. Apologies for that. It's awesome to see that you could now, right, with technology, sit at one spot and make impact across the globe. It's just an interesting scene to see. But speaking to the next question, right, with all these impacts that you've made, with all these achievements, it's very easy for one to think that you don't have challenges, but we all know that in this part of the world, it could be challenging, especially for women and female founders sometimes, to be able to manage so many other things, right? To be able to take the lead on so many fronts. Thankfully, things are changing, and we have women leading in all respect, but would want to know, right, when you started out, or at some point, have you ever faced any challenge simply because you're a woman and doing awesome stuff, which you've done, and how are you able to manage these challenges?
So in my world, gender doesn't exist. I think I have my parents to thank for that. We're a family of all girls. We all work in tech. The sky is our limit, or the universe is. There's never been a ceiling that has been put on us, right? Or where we've been told you can't do this, or this is for girls, right? So in my world and the way that I operate, I don't really operate based on, oh, I'm a woman, so I'm supposed to do X, Y, Z. I operate more on, I'm a human being, this is my potential, and I'm exploring that potential. And I want to create impact. I want to leave a legacy. I want to be the change that I want to see, right? I want to be part of the transformation of this continent, right? And I think when you work hard and you focus on excellence and you, just stay on your mission, right? And just keep going. I think when you're that type of person, you don't really, sort of see the things that may be thrown in your wheels because of your gender, right? Simply because you have no time to focus on those little things because your dream and your vision is so big. I always struggle with this question about, challenges that I've had because I was a woman. I've always been, a lot of the time within the tech industry, and especially within the, segment of the tech industry that creates policy, always been the youngest person and mostly the only woman at the table. And I think I earned that spot, right? I wasn't there because I was a woman. I was not also excluded because I was a woman. I think I earned that spot because I have knowledge, I have, ideas, and I have value to contribute, and I've always operated like that, right? Where especially, with a computer science background, anyone who studied computer science will tell you there is no in between. You're either good or you're bad. You can't be an okay coder. You're bad if you're okay, right? So you're either a good coder or you're not. And I think that sort of recognition of skill, recognition of sort of knowledge is one thing that really separates the technology industry from other industries and the way people operate within the industry, right? If you're good, you will be respected, whether you're a man, a woman, a pink alien, or some kind of teddy bear, right? If you can code and you're good and you have knowledge and you have demonstrated knowledge and experience and you have built products, you have shown innovation, nobody is going to deny you a seat at the table, right? So I think it's really, for me, it's always been about excellence. It's always been about making sure that my work speaks for myself, and making sure that I am doing more than, just building a company, right? For me, it's about nation building. It's about building this continent. It's about ensuring that, there really is a chance for the African continent to reach its full potential, right? So the answer to your question, I think, is no. If there has been, I am way too focused and way too stubborn to notice those things, and I think I was raised to speak up. I was raised to have an opinion. I was raised to fight for what I believe in. And I have done exactly that, right? I have seen, other women who have been sidelined because they've simply not spoken up. And a lot of the time I have spoken up for them, right? Regardless of how male dominated, regardless of how much older the audience or the other people in the room are, right? When something is wrong, you call it out. And, that I think that's just how I was raised. And I was raised in my house. You cannot not have an opinion. If you don't have an opinion, why are you here, right? So you must have an opinion. You must have facts to, sort of defend that opinion and to validate your opinion. And you must be able to hold a discussion in order to convince other people of your opinion, right? And I think when you have those tools, you are well equipped for a male-dominated industry, and you're well equipped for taking your own space. And, I always say, even if there were tigers, lions, and bears in the tech space, I would still be here because this is what I'm called to do. This is what I love doing. It's my purpose. It's my life, right? And I can't even imagine doing anything else, right? So I think I'm at home here. There's nothing or anyone that is going to, make me feel otherwise.
Well, that's interesting to hear. Most cases we'll always hear experiences, but one thing that stands out is how you decided not to listen to the noise around you and then just focus, remain resilient, and then just keep moving on. But most importantly, I think is, of course, your background as well, and maybe parents need to do more in terms of like educating their kids on how best to react to situations like this. But thank you so much for that. That was really insightful. So about the next question, it's us thinking about how you've been interested in various policy-making processes, from your contributions at the NESG to your contribution with the Nigerian Electronic Voting Think Tank, etc. Right? How have you been able to do this? That's one. Having come from a computer engineering background, what informed your decision or your like for policy making, and what policy changes would you like to see like going forward in the industry?
Okay, I think, when you're in the industry and, you're frustrated about certain things, and you very quickly realize that there really is nothing that you can do about it apart from getting involved in policy so that you can be part of the conversation that can change it, right? Also, my dad is in tech as well, and has basically done policy work for the last 30 years. He wrote Nigeria's first IT policy. So I think there's also a little bit of that policy dust that was sprinkled on me at home. And I've always, I guess also looked at my dad and the work that he does and the impact that that work has, right, in terms of changes, that really impact the ecosystem and the development of that ecosystem, right? It is work that requires years and years and years, right? And can be extremely frustrating because you feel like things are not moving fast enough, right? And sometimes, you have policymakers or governments in place that take you backwards, right? Where they reverse things that have been put in place in order to create an enabling environment and, just sort of take it away. So I think for me, if you are going to be, in the technology space anywhere on the continent, as a founder, you really have the responsibility to get involved in policy development, because if not, things will not change and will not move forward. You need to lend your voice. You need to bring ideas. You need to sit down and do the work of writing policy, right? You need to do the work of reviewing policy, of reading policy from other countries to understand what are these things that other countries have put in place to really create these enabling environments from a government perspective, right? And then you need to start engaging with policymakers. You need to start building those networks, right? You need to start really figuring out how you can push, right? And so I think for me, it's more of an end to, it means to an end, because without these policy changes that I'm trying to push, I will continue to be frustrated with the environment that exists, right? And I think in terms of, what are the most important policies, it's really policies that enable the digital economy, and policies that allow technology and digital to become strategic drivers of economic development, right? Where you don't look at technology or digital as a tool, but as a strategic driver. And I think that really, the same way that is done in digital transformation, where you go away from sort of project-based technology projects to a strategic approach to technology that is tied to business outcomes and tied to your business goals, right? That is what we need to do for the development of our economies, right? And to really create impact. Using technology as a strategic driver and not just thinking of technology as, okay, there's a ministry that handles that, or there are some projects that are ongoing, or we'll build a national database and then we're good, right? That is not how development can be spurred using technology. And when you look at countries that have really done this well, you will see that they have really looked at technology across their entire economy, right? They have looked at how technology drives infrastructure development. They have looked at how technology drives healthcare development, how technology drives education and sort of the evolution of education. And I think for me, it's not one particular policy. It's more of the mindset shift of how we address technology when we formulate policy across our economy, right? If we do not have technology as the strategic driver of our entire countries and continents, socioeconomic development, plans and frameworks, then we are setting ourselves up to fail, right? So I think for me, it's a lot of it is creating awareness and talking about what other countries are doing, showing examples, and getting policymakers and decision makers to really start understanding that technology is not a tool, it's a strategic driver. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, very well. And then it brings another final question now about, given your interest in policy making, I feel that from what you've said, the whole idea of you getting involved in policy making is a strategic decision to be able to drive technological advancement at the end of the day, as opposed to folding your arms and looking. We're just wondering, like, are there other things you intend to do, like maybe go into politics, right, to be able to drive technology development and be able to drive decisions around technology in the nearest future?
I would answer that question with yes and no, right? I think it will require the right type of government to be in place for me to be comfortable with wanting to be in government and really knowing that I will be able to make an impact. I've seen too many, sort of very smart and very driven and very focused people go into government and simply get drowned under by mediocrity, by lack of focus, or by simply, Stone Age thinking. And I don't think that would be the best use of my voice and my talent, right? However, if these things, were not there and there was a forward-thinking government in place that is looking for people to contribute and to build and to work really hard in getting us on the right track, and that understands that technology really is a strategic driver, then I would jump on it immediately, right? But it has to be under the right circumstances so that the work that I do actually has impact, right? And I think for me, any decision that I have taken and will take going forward really is always focused on how does this create impact, right? And is there a different way of creating that impact, right? And is it the right time for this type of engagement, right? Because what I've also learned over time is that sometimes either the market is not ready, the people are not ready. And you can push as hard as you want, but it's like trying to move a house. It is not going to move, no matter how many, weightlifting classes you take, no matter how many push-ups you do, no matter how, what you do with your body, you cannot physically move a house, right? So I think if you, however, realize that, actually, if I, get a bulldozer, I can move this house, right? And it's the right time, and that bulldozer is appreciated at that point, then why not, right? But I think it's really important to, make sure that you're not the person trying to physically push that house by yourself, and be realistic with the impact that you're able to make in whatever role you're in, right? And look at what are the different avenues. There's always 101 solutions to one problem, right? Some easier, some more complicated, some take longer, some, make you win, some make you lose. So, I think it's finding that winning formula and ensuring that you chart the right path, right? And I think with all of that, I always tend to listen to what does my gut say, what does my heart say, and, does this feel like I'm supposed to do this? And if the answer is yes, then it will be a yes. If the answer is, oh no, don't go there, then I won't go there, right?
Thank you so much for that. It's really interesting to see how the thought flow or the thought process is really inspiring, to be honest, because people readily jump, right, without stepping back to think about like each of these pros and cons and all that. But it's really, really interesting to see how you've thought about it, like one step after the next and to the next, in order for you to determine whether or not it's something you're looking to do. And I feel that this approach should be taken by just everyone in decision-making process. I think it helps, right? Like you said, if you're not able to make impact, then why are you there in the first place? Thank you so much, Nkemdilim. I think it's been a wonderful session, and it's been wonderful having you this evening. It's really an honor for the team, and we really, really appreciate the the time you've spent with us. And on behalf of the Innovation Law Club Africa, I'm saying thank you so much for joining us this evening.